Hello, and welcome to Lesson 8, Part 4 of 4. The last section of our chart of accounts is expenses and cash disbursements. Before we get into this section, I want to take a look at Statement B of the LM2 report. Statement B is receipts and disbursements. The column header on the left side of the report is cash receipts. These are the LM2 reporting lines for cash receipts and income. The line numbers for the reporting lines were used as the LM2 component for our account numbers. The column header on the right side is cash disbursements. This is a listing of all of the expenses and cash disbursements. The line numbers for each of these reporting lines were also used as the LM2 component for our account numbers. All receipts and disbursements from the local union's trial balance will flow through Statement B. Cash receipts and income was covered in Part 3 of 4 of Lesson 8. We covered many of the reporting lines on the cash receipts side of Statement B. Cash disbursements and expenses will be covered in this session, Part 4 of 4. The first 5 reporting lines of the cash disbursement side are disbursements by functional category from lines 50 through 54. The expenses reported in the functional categories represent the core expenses of a local union's operations. The other major item of note when looking at the cash disbursements column is that there is no specific reporting line for salaries and expenses. Salaries and expenses are reported in Schedule 11 for officers and Schedule 12 for employees. The totals from these schedules are then allocated back to the functional categories. In our chart of accounts, the salaries and expenses section has been set up to report all of the transactions for Schedules 11 and 12. Salaries and expenses are from lines 81 through 89. This is also the third exception for the LM2 reporting line. All account numbers in this section have 49 for the LM2 component in positions 3 and 4 of the account number. The top level account is on line 81, 1495000, salaries/expenses. These schedules require the reporting of named individuals and their salaries, per diem, and expenses. In addition, Schedule 11 requires the listing of all officers that held office during the reporting year, regardless of whether any payments were issued to the officer or on behalf of the officer. Schedule 12 requires the listing of all employees whose Schedule 12 totals is $10,000 or more. Class tracking. This is covered in Lesson 19. Class tracking can be used to track salaries and expenses by person. The combination of our chart of accounts and class tracking by person provides most of the information needed for Schedules 11 and 12 through QuickBooks Online. Most of the accounting systems that are currently out there are not set up to prepare these schedules. The local union auditor must extract the information from accounting records, payroll records, and credit card statements in order to prepare these schedules. I want to talk a little bit about how payroll is recorded in QuickBooks. If the local union is processing through QuickBooks Payroll, the payroll journal entry will be integrated with QuickBooks Online and downloaded after the payroll is submitted for processing. If a local uses a third-party payroll service, the payroll is recorded by journal entry. Journal entries are covered in Lesson 22. The payroll journal entry can also be set up as a recurring payroll entry, which will be covered in Lesson 26. It is also possible to import a payroll data file from the third-party payroll service. These are images of the reporting lines for each individual that is listed on Schedules 11 and 12. Both reports are formatted so that all of the reporting amounts have the same column headers for each schedule. Column D is for salary. On our chart of accounts, officer salary is reported in line 82, account 1495010, and all other salaries or employees are reported on line 86, account 1495030. Column E, allowances disbursed. Generally, this column is for the payment of per diem. Per diem is recorded on line 83, account 1495015 for officers, and on line 87, account number 1495033 for employees. Local unions may use the term expenses or expense allowances for amounts paid to an officer or staff employee that would be considered per diem. Typically, per diem is stipulated in the bylaws, listing the offices that are eligible to receive per diem, the amount, and the frequency. For example, the bylaws may state that the financial secretary-treasurer receives $300 per week expenses. Column F, disbursements for official business. Column F expenses are recorded on line 84, account 1495020 for officers, and line 88, account 1495035 for employees. There are various types of expenses that are included in column F. The LM2 instructions define column F expenses as direct and indirect expenses to each officer or employee that was necessary for conducting official business of the local union, except salaries and allowances. So what does this include? Direct reimbursements that are paid directly to an officer or employee. These are typically approved business expenses that were initially paid by the officer or employee, and then the local union will reimburse them. Third-party disbursements, which is generally a credit card that is issued to the officer or employee. So there could be a gas card, like an Exxon card, or a corporate or commercial credit card, like a Visa or MasterCard. The LM2 rules require that all credit card charges, except for airfare or lodging charges, should be posted as a column F expense for the officer or employee. Now, there is an exception here, and this would apply to amounts reimbursed or charged that are for the local union's general operations. These would not be considered a column F expense. These items would be categorized directly to the expense account. For example, an officer uses the corporate credit card at Office Depot to purchase office supplies. This charge would be categorized directly to line 123, account 1535240, office supplies. Reporting issues that we have seen for credit card charges. If credit card charges are categorized to an account in the cardholder's name, the auditors must remove the airfare and lodging charges and report these separately in accordance with the special reporting rules for airfare and lodging. If the credit card charges are grouped together and the totals are categorized into expense accounts, the auditor will have to review the credit card statements in order to pull airfare and lodging charges out. If each credit card charge is entered into the accounting system to the correct expense account, the auditor then has the information needed for airfare and lodging reporting. Using the QuickBooks Online credit card data feed will allow the local union to classify each credit card charge to the proper account on an ongoing basis. Column G, other disbursements not reported in columns D through F. For officers, this is line 85, account number 1495025, and for employees, line 89, account 1495039. Expenses in this column are for the personal benefit of an officer or an employee and are not considered necessary for conducting the official business of the local union. Expenses could be direct or indirect disbursements and include cash, property, goods, services, or other things of value that were received by or on behalf of an officer or employee. Examples include fringe benefits that are considered as part of the compensation package for the individual, credit card charges that were reimbursed by the officer or staff member, business meals. The cost of a spouse's meal during a business dinner would also be considered a column G expense. Now there are special rules regarding local union-owned automobiles. A determination must be made as to whether the use of the vehicle assigned to an officer or employee was used 50% or more for local union business. If it was used 50% or more for business, all of the costs of that vehicle would be included as a column F cost. If the vehicle was not used at least 50% of the time for local union business, these costs would be reported in column G. Costs would include gas, repairs, and insurance for the year. The International recommends tracking the mileage of the vehicle for business and personal use throughout the year as a method for assessing the business use of a vehicle. Commuting to and from an officer or employee's home to the local union is considered personal use of the vehicle and should be included in the calculation. Non-payroll, local union expenses, and functional categories. Expenses that reflect the services provided to union members are allocated to a functional expense or category. Each functional category has a separate schedule on the LM2. This slide is a summary for each functional category, which lists the reporting line number on the LM2, and therefore the LM2 component used in our chart of accounts, the schedule number on the LM2 report, and the line numbers for each category in our chart of accounts. The following slides provide additional information per functional category. Representational functional category expenses. The LM2 requires reporting on costs associated with representational activities on Schedule 15. The LM2 instructions define representational activities as costs associated with collective bargaining agreements, administration, and enforcement of agreements. Our chart of accounts has representational expenses listed from lines 90 through 97, with the number 50 as the LM2 component of the account number in our chart of accounts. Accounts that we have included under representational costs are organizing, negotiation, and targeting costs. Political functional category expenses. The LM2 requires reporting the costs associated with political activities on Schedule 16. The LM2 instructions define political activities as costs associated with political disbursements or contributions associated with executive, state, and local governments, independent agencies, and staff involved in the election of a candidate or for any legislative action. Our chart of accounts has political activities listed from lines 98 through 102 with the number 51 as the LM2 component of the account number. Accounts that we have included under political costs are political expenses and political consulting costs. Contributions functional category expenses. The full name of this category is Contributions, Gifts, and Grants, and the LM2 requires reporting of costs associated with these activities on Schedule 17. The LM2 instructions define contributions, gifts, and grants costs as those associated with charitable contributions or contributions to scholarship funds. Our chart of accounts has contributions expenses listed from lines 103 through 108 with the number 52 as the LM2 component of the account number. Accounts that we have included under costs are charitable contributions, scholarship expenses, or scholarship contributions. General overhead functional category expenses. The LM2 requires reporting of general overhead costs on Schedule 18. The LM2 instructions define general overhead activities as costs that cannot be classified as any other functional activity. Since there are no apparent specifics for this category provided in the LM2 instructions, you should think of expenses in this category as overhead costs for running your local union. Our chart of accounts has general overhead expenses listed from lines 109 through 133 with the number 53 as the LM2 component of the account number. Accounts that we have included under general overhead costs are advertising and promotional costs, local union promotions and public relations costs, IT costs, auditing and accounting fees, and office costs including rent, supplies, office maintenance, and telephone. Union administration functional category expenses. The LM2 requires reporting of costs associated with union administration activities on Schedule 19. The LM2 instructions define union administration costs as costs associated with the nomination and election of officers, regular membership meetings, regional and international meetings, administration of apprenticeship and member education programs. Our chart of accounts has union administration expenses listed on lines 134 through 142, with the number 54 as the LM2 component of the account number in our chart of accounts. Accounts that we have included under union administration costs are election costs, negotiation costs, and insurance. You may have noticed that I omitted talking about airfare, lodging, credit card charges, legal costs, or other consultant costs, which was listed in each of the functional categories. We will talk about these expenses in further detail later, but for now, just note that it is possible to have these expenses in each of the functional categories. I'd like to turn your attention now to the Expenses tab on the Excel workbook. This worksheet focuses on the natural account numbers used in our chart of accounts. Section 1 is a listing of the natural account numbers for our salaries and expenses section. Natural account numbers for the salary and expense accounts are from 5010 through 5039. Section 2. Column B is an alphabetical listing of expenses listed in the functional category sections. Column C is the natural account number for each expense. We have included this spreadsheet as a reference tool if you need to add a new expense account. When adding an account, you would slot the new account in alphabetically and determine the natural account number. Before adding the new account to the chart of accounts, you will need to determine the functional category this expense is related to. If the expense could be incurred in more than one functional category, you would add accounts in each functional category using the same natural account number. We included the following accounts in all 5 functional categories. It is possible that any of these could be incurred in each category. For example, legal expenses were included in all 5 functional categories. The natural account number for legal expenses is 5180. The account numbers in the chart of accounts for each category would be 1505180 representational, 1515180 political, 1525180 contributions, 1535180 general overhead, 1545180 union administration. The same logic has been applied for airfare and lodging and other consultant costs. All three expenses were listed on the functional category slides. There is one final area to discuss before leaving the functional category reporting section: airfare and lodging credit card charges. Back in the salaries and expenses discussion, we talked about pulling out the airfare and lodging credit card charges from column F expenses. The LM2 instructions has special reporting rules for airfare and lodging credit card charges and disbursements. Instead of reporting the charges on Schedules 11 and 12 by officer or employee name, these amounts are reported by vendor and the functional category. The LM2 rules require naming the airline or hotel if the total amount spent during the year is $5,000 or more. As the credit card charges are processed through the credit card feed, the detail is available for the auditors to be able to apply the special reporting rules required by the LM2 instructions. The next section is benefits, which is shown from lines 143 through 153. These are fringe benefits paid for officers, employees, members, and their beneficiaries, including payments issued to a trust fund. This would include fringe benefits for officers and members, impact payments, local union death benefit fund payments, and the cost of retiree activities or benefit payments. The next section is per capita tax, listed on lines 154 through 158. This would include per capita paid to the international, district council, state, and local central bodies or other labor organization. Payments for supplemental per capita included on this statement would not be posted to this account. The next section is investment expenses or losses and losses from the sale of fixed assets, listed on lines 159 through 165. This would include investment manager fees and realized and unrealized losses on investment. The next section is disbursements on behalf of members and affiliates, listed from lines 166 through 175. This section would be used to report disbursements that were previously recorded as receipts in the receipts on behalf of member and affiliates discussed in the income and cash receipts section. Disbursements in this section would not be considered expenses of the local union. The next section is direct taxes, listed from lines 176 through 179. This section is used to report various tax expenses, including real estate, property, and employer payroll taxes. The next section is all other expenses, listed from lines 181 through 183. This section is used to report non-cash expenses such as depreciation and amortization. This is the end of Lesson 8, Part 4 of 4.